Good afternoon. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we're going to, for our chart lesson today, we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to just talk about second entries. A lot of you asked me about second entries. More people seem to have problems with second entries, and it's really pretty simple once you understand it. It's not a magic formula. It's not something that should be hard or difficult to figure out. So I'm just going to show you a few examples of some second entries, and then we'll call it a day today. But as you can see, let's just show you. Generally, what you want to do when you're in a downtrend, you want to be counting your off the lows. And when you're in an uptrend, this is just a small uptrend, but when you get an uptrend, you want to be counting off your highs. Generally, you can have a count going off both sides, even coming down. But generally, it's best if you're coming down, to have your count coming off the lows. And if you're going up, to have your count coming off the highs, looking for your second entries. So that's pretty much how it works. All right, we're coming down here. Let's look here. Each time you get a new low, the count's at zero. So let's just start right here. We had a new low right here. See how this low is lower than any of these previous lows. So the count's zero. You get a pullback, and the first attempt to go lower is your first entry. And prices came on down, and look, we got a new low. It only went by one tick, so there's a new low. So technically, your count's zero again. You pull back, you break lower there. That's a first entry short. But since we're here, let's talk about this. Nothing's perfect in trading. Close is usually close enough. If a pattern looks like a pattern, it's probably going to act like a pattern. And look at this. Does that not look like a two-legged pullback to the EMA that formed a double top right there? That's what it looks like to me. And so that's close enough to be a second entry short. And look, it would have worked out great. The market's kind of weak right in here. It's been trending down ever since the open, which was right here. And so the market's kind of weak. And so I don't know that I would have taken this trade if I couldn't see what was out here already. If this was, if the chart was in real time, we would only see what's right here, and you would have been going short. It's close enough to be a second entry off a two-legged pullback to the EMA and a double top. However, look at all these overlapping bars, 1, 2, 3 bars, and two of them are dojis. So I don't know that I would have taken that, but still, that's close enough to be a second entry short. And so I did want to talk about that. But here we go. We broke lower. Prices are coming down. And we haven't had any pullback. Here's the first new low before we got a pullback. So the count is zero right here. If it would have started pulling back right here and went higher, the count would have been zero because that would have been the new low. But you're waiting for the low. There's a new low. We finally get a pullback. So the count's zero here. We're pulling back. There's the first break lower right below this bar right here. And so there's your first entry short. But price is going down. We got a new low. So the count's over. We're starting over again. There's your pullback. There's the first break lower. And you get a little pullback right here. It doesn't look like much, but that's an inside bar. Then we broke above it. And we haven't made a new low yet. So prices broke lower right there. There's your second entry short. Again, here's your count zero. Pullback. First entry. Pullback. Boom. And when it broke right there, there's your second entry short. You can see it was not a good entry. 3 overlapping bars, at least one of them's a doji. That one right there, not a good entry. And then we got a new low. It's only by a tick, but it's a new low. Count zero again. We pull back. There's your first break lower. But look, we went on lower, so that counts zero again. There's your pullback. We broke lower right there, but we got a new low already, so counts zero whenever it starts pulling back. So we got a new low right there. We got a pullback. We broke lower by one tick, so there's your first entry. We pull back again. We broke lower right there. There's your second entry short. Can you see that? This one's not real clear. There's overlapping bars and all. But there's your low. If none of this is out here yet, there's your new low. You pulled back. You broke lower right there by a tick. That's your first entry short. You pulled back. And there, when you broke below that bar, that's your second entry short. And that probably would have been good enough for a scalp right there. So now your count zero down here. You pull back. There's your first break lower. So there's your first entry short. But look, we got a new low. So count zero again. We pull back. There's your first break lower. So there's your first entry. But now we got a new low there. So count zero. This is a pullback because this is a higher low than this one. breaks lower. There's your first entry, but we got a new low again right here. Then we start pulling back. Can you see that? There's a new low. Counts 0. We start pulling back right there. There's your first attempt to go lower. We went a little lower. Didn't make a new low, though, so there's a first entry. Prices pull back again and broke lower right there. There's you a second entry short. That you can clearly see those two legs there. That's all second entries are. We're looking for two legs. And then we know that after two legs, then you usually get a move again. Can you see those two legs? One leg, pull back, two leg. There's your second entry short. And even though prices didn't break off and sell lower, it still was good enough for an easy scalp there. So you would have gotten your scalp there. But let me show you this. Prices are kind of working up now. You got a new high right here. See, this high is higher than that high. That is the count 0. Prices pull back. There's your first entry to attempt to go higher. There's your first entry long. Prices pull back again, then went higher. That's a second entry long, counting off this high. And that would have been good for another scalp. That's all it would have been good for. But I would have taken that because you got a short trap right here. When prices broke lower right here, made that double bottom and turned back up, you got a short trap. So going long right there is okay. You got a double bottom. It's a higher double bottom low than this low. So you got some momentum to the upside. It waned here, but it was still good for a scalp, and most traps are. Actually, your entry, this is why I like to have the crosshairs on here. The entry was 45, and this went all the way to 48.50. That's 3.5 points. I don't know about you, but I like to enter and get 3 points. Sure, I didn't catch a big runner, but I still made 2 or 3 points if I entered right there. Probably got a point on my runner, and I probably could have got an easy 2 points on my. I got a point on my first scalp, and then I could have got an easy 2 points on the second contract. But again, we're going up here. But now prices are coming down. But let's look. Count 0 off the high. We got our first move down. There's the first attempt to go higher right there off this new high, which is count 0. We pull back. First entry. Pull back again. That's a second entry long. Of course, I'm not taking that because it looks like the downtrend starting back again, but that's a second entry long. And then prices went lower. There's a third entry long right there. Can you see that? Count 0, pulling back, first entry, pulling back, second entry, pulling back, third entry. And then now we got a higher swing here because it's higher than this swing right here. So the count 0 again. First entry, oops, new high, count 0. First entry, counts 0. New high right there, pulling back. There's your first attempt to go higher. There's your first entry. And then boom, the second entry right there. So hopefully you can see that. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com. See you tomorrow.